Hey, good morning. How are you doing? I guess it's afternoon now. Let me turn down the volume here, make sure that I don't hear myself. All right, how are you doing? This is Paul Mireles, and we're here with the Cloudy with the Chance of Learning. And I think today's subject is going to be pretty fun. Again, I'm not the best teacher in the world, but I try my very, very best. So anyway, we're going to talk about hurricanes and how they move and why they move the way that they do. So everybody's interested in hurricanes, tropical season. The thing that's interesting, I'll start off with this. One thing that's interesting about 2020, of course, it's been a very unique year, but so far, this is the first day of hurricane season, and we've already seen two named storms, so we're going to go right to the sea name. I think it's Cristobal, I think. Anyway, we're going to go right to the sea name, and we have some disturbed weather down in the southern Gulf of Mexico and the Central America area. We'll take a look. So anyway, but hopefully you're having a good day out there. We'll talk about the weather as well. Hey, Lisa, how are you doing? Gladys, how are you? One thing I always wonder whenever we do these, and I'm not sure how Bill does it or how everybody else does it, but I wonder if you can hear a little talking or hear the countdown in the background. I'm sure you can, but anyway. Carmen, how are you? Marina, how are you? Yeah, okay. Can't wait to learn. I told Bill I love you. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I enjoy it as well. Andrea, how are you doing? Hey, tell Ainsley I said hi. And Roy, hey, how are you doing? Always the same thing, man. I appreciate it. And Jennifer, how are you? It is a Monday, and my Monday starts very early. I don't want any sympathy. I hate to even bring it up, but my Monday starts at 1:30 in the morning is when I get up, and so Mondays can be long. Is there any rain tomorrow? There's going to be a chance for rain. We'll get to the forecast coming up in just a minute. Okay, so we've got hurricane steering currents. Let me, bam, pull that up right there. That way you can see what's going on. And really, I had wanted it behind me, but it's not back there, and I'm not exactly sure how to route it, so we'll just keep it here. Jackson, if you're still on the line and you know how to route that, that'd be awesome. So anyway, okay, hurricane steering currents, why do they move the way that they move? All right, first thing, we got different stages of tropical cyclone development. And, when you hear cyclone, basically that's an area of low pressure. That's that L on the map, cyclone. Anything that spins in an area of low pressure is an area of low pressure or cyclone. And you got mid-latitude cyclones, which are not tropical. Just before I get really confusing, whenever you see the word cyclone, that's basically an area of lower pressure or a trough, okay? So, tropical disturbance, that's where we start off with. Also, we could use tropical disturbance, we could call it an easterly wave. Those waves move across the Atlantic. I'm going to show you a map here in a little bit, but basically what that is a weakness in the big ridge of high pressure out in the Atlantic. And there's a semi-permanent high that just lives out there in the Atlantic, and almost like spokes on a wheel, where that high is a little weaker, you'll have one of those disturbances, and it's what we call those easterly waves. And every season, I think there's 100 of them that come across from Africa to the U.S. Most of them just stay as little waves, little troughs of low pressure. All right, we got a tropical depression. That's the next step up. And then you've got tropical storm and you've got hurricane. Now, as a rule of thumb, you can't always use this, but as a rule of thumb, the weaker the system, then the lower when you look at the weather map, you want to look at a map that's kind of lower. For instance, here's an example. If I'm wanting to determine the movement of a tropical wave, well, I'm not going to use a map that's way up high at 20, 30, 40,000 feet. I'm going to use one that's probably between 5 and 10,000 feet because it's a smaller system. The bigger the system is, then the higher in altitude that I'm going to pick for the map to show a steering current. And again, all this is just kind of rules, just kind of rule of thumb kind of stuff. But I think it'll help. And if you're a big weather fan, then maybe that'll help you out, and you know where to go on the computer and find the 700 millibar, 500 millibar charts. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you know how to do that, maybe not. I don't know. But either way, we've got, we're going to decline that. All right, we've got these tropical waves, little disturbances, and they show up on a map by little dashed lines, okay? And basically all that is showing is a weaker area of low pressure inside of the big, kind of going around the upper level ridge of high pressure. And so the wind flow kind of bends around that tropical wave. Out in the tropics, you've got a lot of humidity, You've got just waiting for a chance for rainfall, but most of the time you need some kind of either a disturbance or a frontal boundary, which doesn't happen out in the tropics very often. But these little disturbances will actually be areas where showers and storms will develop. It's an area of convergence, and that allows the convergence to go on, and then you have the showers that go through the atmosphere. And anyway, it's a line of convergence basically. And so if the upper atmosphere is quiet enough, well, then you'll have something to develop. Then maybe that tropical disturbance will become a tropical depression, tropical storm, so forth and so on. So this is the map that I was telling you about. This is the 850 millibar map. And if I want to know where these tropical disturbances are going, then I just look at this. Now, I know it's kind of small, but if you look at the map and you see Africa way over there, right? And you see South America, and you see the Caribbean. Well, notice how all those wind barbs are all going from the east to the west. And it is almost always like that. And the reason is you've got a semi-permanent high across the central portions of the Atlantic. So every once in a while, let me see if I can find one. I don't think I can find one on this map, little disturbance. Yeah, okay. I wish I could point, but just off the coast of South America, you see that upside down U? That is a tropical disturbance, okay? Can you point that out? Can you see that? Again, right there, that's a tropical disturbance kind of going from, and then there's another one coming off of Africa, another upside down U right there, okay? And there's another one that we're going to talk about in a minute. This is what used to be Tropical Storm Amanda in the Pacific. Well, it's come onto Central America. If you can kind of see where Central America is right there, the Yucatan, kind of in that area. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a minute. But right now we're talking steering currents, and that's what I use for the little disturbances, things that aren't even a depression yet, okay? Next step, well, we're going to skip the tropical depression stage because it's almost like a disturbance. We'll go on to tropical storm. By the way, have you ever noticed that on a tropical storm, you can almost divide it in half, and this happens to us here in Texas every once in a while. You'll have a tropical storm that'll come on shore. Let's say it comes on shore around Corpus Christi, and the movement is due north from Corpus Christi, let's say almost to Austin, okay? And this happens quite a bit. Well, usually like with a hurricane, the rain is almost even on both sides of that low, a little more maybe on the right side. Well, with these tropical storms, you hardly get anything on the left side of it, on the weaker side, or where the winds are out of the north. But on the south, that's where all the rainfall is. They're real lopsided, okay? So tropical storms can be real lopsided. They're definitely not as strong as hurricanes. And so therefore, I usually use a map that's not quite as high as I would for a hurricane. So 700 millibar map works pretty good, depending on how strong the tropical storm is. If it's a little stronger, you may want to use a 500 millibar map, but about 10,000 feet, that usually captures pretty much what's going on with the tropical storm. And like I said, sometimes I'll go between 700 and 500 millibars. That gives you a real good example of what's going on. Again, going to the Yucatan, you can see there, we've got a little reflection there, or a upside down U. That's an area of weak or lower pressure. And well, again, that's what's left over of Amanda, and that's what might develop in the Gulf of Mexico. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But pretty much just like the 850 millibar flow on this map, you notice those arrows going from Africa across through the Caribbean, right through South America into the Gulf of Mexico. And every once in a while, you'll see one of those little upside down U's. That's a tropical disturbance moving through. Of course, there's no tropical storms out there to show you. But anyway, if there was a tropical storm, let's just pretend that Amanda was a tropical storm there. I would probably say that it would go more like to the west-northwest. You notice that disturbance that's there just north of South America, kind of northeast of South America there in the Atlantic. That's going to continue to keep going west towards the Caribbean. And if you've watched weather long enough, you know that's pretty much the movement of these systems. If they're that far south from Africa into the Caribbean, they usually move in that direction. But this is the map that I would use if there was a tropical storm somewhere in the Atlantic and I wanted to try to figure out where that system is going to work. I would use a 700 millibar map. One thing that you may have noticed as well is a lot of times when you have these hurricanes and tropical storms on the East Coast, It's almost like they want to avoid the eastern U.S. like a plague. They kind of go, they definitely don't want to go into Georgia and South Carolina, and then they just kind of nick North Carolina most of the time. And the land mass of the United States has a lot to do with that. I don't have any maps to show you there, but it's not your imagination. A lot of times these systems will kind of approach the East Coast and then hit North Carolina, and it has a lot to do with land. Okay, hurricanes. This is Hurricane Katrina, by the way. I should have used Harvey, satellite imagery of Harvey, but I didn't. But anyway, this is Hurricane Katrina. So what map would I use for that? Well, I'd use about 500 millibar, or about 20,000 feet above sea level to track that one. This one is a little bit easier to read maybe for you. And notice what is absent from this. You don't have that distinct east to west movement across the Atlantic like you do on some of the lower level maps, okay? So let's take we have very few areas of low pressure on this map. We've got lower pressures over Mexico, and then our friend there that used to be Amanda in the Central America area, there's one. So let's just use that. Let's say that that was a hurricane and that was over the Yucatan Peninsula there. I would pretty much say that the favored movement would probably be towards the north and west, okay? And really for this time of the year anyway, climatology, the favored movement is either kind of north or north and west from that neighborhood there, from the southern portions of the Gulf of Mexico and the Yucatan. So it's hard to make it out without pointing. But you've got a big ridge of high pressure across the central portions of the U.S. around Minnesota, North and South Dakota, okay? And it kind of extends down towards Florida and into Cuba. Well, the movement around that, in conjunction with the lower to its west, would give that a northwest flow or a northwest motion towards either northern Mexico or Texas if this was a hurricane. Of course, it's not. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay, now one other thing that will determine movement is the upper level winds. So we use a chart at about 30,000 feet. And let's say that everything being equal, there was a tropical storm or tropical system, hurricane around the Yucatan, okay? And all the maps said that it would move basically to the north and west. Well, if you've got a lot of wind shear, for one thing, that will disrupt it, mess up the flow. You know, these tropical systems, they like to stay pretty much vertically stacked. If you've got too much wind at the top, it'll literally tilt, and then that just messes it up, and it's not nearly as strong that way. But if the winds are really light up high, 30, 40, 50,000 feet, then it'll be nice and stacked, and it'll grow and be stronger. But if there's too much shear in one direction, not only will it kind of shear it apart like that, but also it'll kind of tend to move it in that way. And what'll happen is a lot of times these tropical systems that are getting sheared a lot, they'll almost kind of reorganize to where that shear is kind of taking it. And so that can be kind of a little bit of a steering as well. One thing that's interesting is over the Yucatan right now and over Central America, the winds are really light. On this particular map, where you see a lot of white on the map, those are light winds. Where it's blue or green, the winds are stronger, and of course red, those are the winds that are the strongest. That's actually the jet stream that you can see that's working from Michigan and into North Carolina, and then just kind of curving back out into the northern Atlantic there. So anyway, we'll have to watch and see what's going to happen with Amanda. I'm going to show you some maps here in a minute. It's not going to be Amanda, by the way. It'll turn into the sea name once it gets over in the Atlantic, if it does develop. But the thing that's been really interesting is I've been looking at different computer models, and a little varied, a little different on the results, but whatever happens down there, more than likely it's going to be a long kind of evolving kind of system. It looks like it wants to hug towards the land and not really move a whole lot, and then finally start moving by the end of the week, and then develop at that time. So I don't know, I think we've got a lot of time to watch what's going on down there, and at this point, it could be anywhere from just a little weak, maybe a tropical storm, maybe not even that, all the way to a hurricane. I mean, and from Texas all the way to Alabama, going to have to really watch what happens down there in the Gulf of Mexico, and I'll show you a little bit more. So, how long do we go? Oh yeah, we almost went about 20 minutes on the lesson here. So hopefully that helps you out. Somehow I got kicked out of the Facebook. I'm going to try to get back on, that way I can answer some questions, because of course that's the fun part, is answering your questions and talking to you guys at home. And I hope you guys enjoy this. I know that I really enjoy it as well. Okay, there we go. Well, it didn't take very long for me to get back on. Jennifer, hey, how are you doing? Well, thank you. Yeah, it's 1 o'clock at night, basically. Yeah, I get confused sometimes once we get past 12. Oh, okay. Please, okay, I won't. Matthew, hey, I will not. Sorry about that, Matthew. And let's see, Matthew, finally it's back to not buffering. Good deal. Do we have, okay. And Patrick, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm glad you love these demonstrations. So they're pretty brief, you know, and it's real kind of general, but at least it gives you a little idea of what we do and how we track these systems. One last map I'm going to leave you with is, this is a track from the National Hurricane Center, okay, and this is Harvey. By the way, for those of you that don't know, I was in Harvey. I think that was my 5th hurricane that I was in. I was in Port Lavaca, and I knew better because this was my 5th hurricane, but the raindrops were like needles. I needed those goggles. But anyway, here's a track, and it didn't take long for Harvey to ramp up from just a tropical depression, tropical storm, hurricane, and then became a Category 4. But you'll notice a track there, and so I just wanted you to be familiar with the tracks and how they can deviate one side or the other. You know, the cone of uncertainty, sometimes with some of these systems, is quite large, sometimes small. With Hurricane Harvey, it was pretty small. And the reason why is Harvey had a real reliable steering current. I mean, there was no doubt that Harvey was headed towards Texas. And so anyway, that cone of uncertainty was a little smaller with Harvey there. All right, well, hopefully you enjoyed the tracking. How do we track hurricanes, and how do we determine where their movement is and how they move? Hope you enjoyed that. All right, let's get to the forecast. Outside, it's a muggy day. Temperature's a little cooler than you would expect. Our average high on June 1st is 90 degrees. Outside, it's just around 80, and I think our high temperature is only going to be in the lower 80s, so catching a little break from June heat for today. 77 out at Calaveras Lake. We do have some rain on the map. You know, this morning we picked up a little bit of some rain. Matter of fact, some heavy downpours. And what's really interesting is we have transitioned real quick from more of a kind of continental severe weather type scenario to a more of a tropical air mass type scenario. And when you have tropical air mass like this, it's a lot harder to have any severe weather. So I don't see any severe weather in the offering for us, but I think we will see some rainfall. Now, one thing that happens a lot of times, sometimes with these systems, you'll have a lot of rain that piles up along the coastal sections, and then it just kind of robs us here further inland. So I think our rain is going to be a little hit and miss. I do still think we're going to pick up some showers, and any kind of rain that we do receive today, you could have some pretty heavy downpours. And you'll notice from this morning's rain, even though it was raining pretty heavy in some places, didn't have any lightning or thunder. And that happens a lot when you have kind of a tropical kind of atmosphere in place. There is some lightning strikes right along the coast, but even though there's some yellows and some reds, really not a lot of lightning showing up on this map. All right, temperature right now is 79 degrees. We've got 80 in Floresville. We've got 80 at Pleasanton. Catula's also at 80, I should say. Del Rio's 81. And notice where it's raining down towards George West, Beeville, Victoria. All those temperatures are in the low to mid 70s. And it's not so much what you see on the surface map, but it's what's going on aloft. And this is a perfect example of how sometimes what really gives you a better indication of what's going on is when you look above the ground. And so keep a kind of image of that map. You see all that shower activity. It's kind of spotty from Dallas-Fort Worth back to Midland, all through west central Texas there. And so what is causing it? Well, it shows up plain as day on the water vapor. This is our upper level low that's kind of centered across northern Mexico there, almost pretty close to the Big Bend. But that is helping to pull up moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. Plus it's more of a kind of like a cooler pocket of air aloft, and so it makes things a little more unstable. And so you can see the showers there. Also, you can see another area of low pressure on the 500 millibar chart basically is what you're looking at here, and that's there over the Yucatan with that disturbed area of weather down there in Central America. So what is going to happen? Let's take a look. Let me put this in motion. Let's put there we go. Okay, here's another way. Now, one thing doesn't happen very often, but this system actually came across from the Pacific across Central America and is trying to reemerge out into the Gulf of Mexico. I don't think this is going to be a situation, though, where this system is going to sprint northward or sprint off to the north and west. I think it may meander a little bit, just kind of hang out for a couple of days down there. So we've got several days to watch what happens there in the central portions of the Yucatan down there in Central America. Now, why do I say that? Well, if you look at this map, there's not a real strong steering current at all, and we were just talking about that for tropical systems. It's actually pretty weak down there. You'll see over Texas, there's our upper level low kind of spinning. This is for tomorrow, by the way. Still there. Rain chances are going to be not as good as today, but still I think we'll have a chance for some showers and storms, especially if we can get into the upper 80s. And I think we may even have some lightning and thunder if we see some sunshine tomorrow. And then there's what's going on with the remnants of what was Amanda right over the Yucatan, just kind of spinning and spinning and spinning. Matter of fact, see how it's kind of trapped between the two orange shades? One of the orange shades, that's high pressure over, let's say, Hispaniola and Cuba. And then you've got another one that's there over Mexico. And this is Wednesday, going into Wednesday and Thursday, just kind of sitting there and not really having much of any kind of direction to go. And then, of course, this is just one computer model, by the way. I believe this is the GFS, the American model. And as we head into Friday, let me see, Friday here, still not a lot of movement, but like I said, this time of the year, favored is a northward movement. That climatologically, that would be the favored movement. And then finally, starting to get on the move towards Louisiana. You know what? Matter of fact, I think this is not the GFS, but I think this is the European model. Yeah, because, well, either one of them, both of them are kind of doing the same thing. Notice how the European says that high to the north in Missouri and Arkansas will kind of move it back towards Texas a little bit and then move towards the upper Texas coast and Louisiana. The GFS is very similar, but I think eventually, and it may take all the way till next week, I mean a whole week for this to happen, if it does. I mean, that system may just sit there and just kind of die across Central America, but I think by the time we get to early next week, somewhere up the upper Texas coast or Louisiana makes a whole lot of sense. But all the way from Brownsville, matter of fact, the Mexican coast for that matter, all the way over to Alabama, just watch and see what happens. And like I said before, right now, this could be anywhere from a really weak system all the way to a hurricane. It's just really hard to tell at this point right now. So kind of interesting. Looks like tropical season is really starting to ramp up a little early. All right, so as we head through the day today, go ahead, click over. There we go. High today in the lower 80s. Chance for some scattered showers and some thunder showers, I think. Lots of cloud cover tonight, cloudy. Tomorrow, especially with the heating of the day, bam, you see that? Some more scattered showers and storms develop with the heating of the day. And I think tomorrow will be a little warmer. We'll probably get into the upper 80s tomorrow. About 87, I think, is what I went. So let's take a look at the 7-day. This is our 7-day forecast. This is one I put together this morning. 82 for high today, and I think that's about right. Cloudy skies. And then tomorrow, 40% chance of scattered showers and storms. High right around 87 degrees. And then as we head into Wednesday, we're going to lose our upper level low. And I threw in a 20% chance on Wednesday just because we'll probably have a lot of humidity, probably not much of a cap in place. So some isolated to scattered showers in the afternoon should develop, about a 20% chance. And then for the end of the week, I think the upper level ridging takes hold, 92, 93, Thursday and Friday just plain hot, partly cloudy. And then this is ironic. The stronger the system is, if there is one in the Gulf of Mexico for the weekend, the hotter our temperatures will be because we'll have some subsidence, especially by Sunday. So I think Saturday, 93, 94, Sunday, 94, 95. If it's a really strong system, let's hope it's not, in the Gulf of Mexico. If it's really strong, then Sunday's temperatures could easily be 95, 96, maybe 97 degrees, maybe even 98, somewhere in that vicinity. So either way, I think we're looking at a hot weekend, Saturday and Sunday with partly cloudy skies, and those highs definitely in the mid-90s, I think, both Saturday and also Sunday. And then we'll watch what happens down in the Gulf of Mexico. But either way, I really appreciate everybody being with us today. And Jennifer, hey, how are you doing? And oh, Tucson, I bet you Tucson is hot this time of the year. Let's see, when do the monsoons kick in? Around July 4th, I think. So at least you'll have some lightning to look at and some clouds start billowing out there in Tucson around right after July 4th, throughout July and August, I think, for about 60 days or so. You've got your the monsoon will kick in out there. And Matthew, yeah, let's see, Danitza? Yeah, hey, how are you doing? You want some more rain? I tell you, we had a good May. Had a lot of rain in May. And we're starting off June a little wet, so that's a good thing. We'll never turn down, there you go, clapping. We'll never turn down rain here in South Texas, that is for sure. All right, I want you to enjoy the rest of your Monday, and hopefully you'll pick up a little bit of some rain. Oh, by the way, both today and tomorrow, those places that pick up a little bit of a heavy downpour, this is a real tropical air mass. The precipitable water is like 1.5 to 2. May not mean a whole lot to you, but that's just, there's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. So if you pick up a downpour, you could pick up an inch or two really quick. Could have a little localized flooding. I'm not expecting anything major, but just to keep that in mind. All right. Well, thanks a bunch. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope you have a great day. We'll see you later.